Hi, this is B from Kongzerus, along with Mrs. Kongzerus dressed up in our homemade Tron outfit. Hope you guys enjoy. This is our in-depth Tron review. Check it out. Let's start by talking about the history of the Tron arcade game, which came out in the summer of 1982 around the same time as the movie itself. This is video footage from Patman QC about the history of the arcade game. Check out the full video in the description below. But this game, Arcade Cabinet, was absolutely iconic. They wanted to have this game come out around the same time as the movie because this captured everybody's imagination, being one of the first movies with CGI. The graphics was at the time revolutionary, so it was definitely a cult hit. The movie itself didn't make as much money as the games itself. So the game actually had about 800 cabinets sold in 1982. By 1983, there were 10,000 cabinets sold. It made over $30 million of revenue, according to this article. So that's a lot of money just in arcade games, and people loved this cab. Flash forward almost 40 years later, and Arcade1Up comes along to release their own home arcade version of Tron, which absolutely looks stunning compared to the original. This was available on Arcade1Up's website direct for $6.99 US, which was one of the most expensive cabs to date, but it was available at other retailers like Target and Best Buy, and I was able to get it from Target with this 10% off discount code, including my red card discount. So this is the price I paid, $655 out the door for Tron. So once I got my Tron, I decided to do a live unboxing video with Mrs. Kongzerus when this happened.
Wait, okay, this is a bold move here, Mrs. Kongzerus. What are we doing here?
She's acting like a cat. That's what we.
Oh!
What'd you
Did
break?
you hear that? Did you hear that?
I heard
my
a little
God!
crack.
No, it's still good.
Pretend like nothing happened.
Oh! This is a disaster! Oh!
That's right, Mrs. Kongzerus broke my actual G panel, but it was just cosmetic damage. She signed up to make up for it in many different ways. I still love her, and Tron still lives.
So maybe wine and building Arcade1Ups don't mix, but at least we had a good time. Now let's talk about the Arcade1Up Tron cabinet design and artwork. Arcade1Up did a great job with the side panel paying homage to the original cab design. This cab stands 64.72 inches tall and towers over the previous Arcade1Up cabs, except Big Blue. You can see that Tron uses a larger riser than your normal standard one, and the side panel extensions give the cab that extra height. The artwork on the side replicates the original cab's simple design, however the riser has extra graphics on the side along with a Tron and Disc of Tron's logo on the front. The kick plate is too plain in my opinion and could have used a nice coin door. However, the light-up features on the cab still makes this the most beautiful Arcade1Up cab to date. There are 5 main light-up features, including the beautiful marquee, which looks fantastic and is evenly lit. Next, there is a black light strip shining down from the top which illuminates all the detailed neon reflective artwork on the control panel and side walls. Right below the monitor, there's a hump bar which illuminates in different colors when pressing a hidden button located at the bottom right of the screen. Another great homage to the original Tron cab is Light Up J panel, which uses trans-light plexiglass with printed artwork and an LED strip inside the cab. Lastly, one of the most iconic features of the Tron cab is the Light Up Blue flight stick, which Arcade1Up has replicated almost exactly like the original with its size and shape. Overall, all these features, along with the recessed monitor, makes this one of the most immersive Arcade1Up experiences you can have. Back to you, Mr. Kongzerus.
Thanks, Mrs. Kongzerus. Now let's talk about one of the most important things about this cab, which is the unique controls that Tron comes with, a spinner and a flight stick. This combination of controls is one of the most unique things about arcades, and I had to have this in my arcade room. Let's start with the flight stick itself, which is very comfortable in hand. It's a combo stick for both Tron and Disc of Tron, as it has a trigger on the front as well as the thumb button for your shield in Discs of Tron. The spinner is unique with the Tron top and spins fairly freely even though it has a plastic feeling, but it's unique because it does push and pull for use with Discs of Tron as well. The rest of the control panel is fairly plain with your standard on-off switch, volume switch, audio jack, live button, and a player 1 and 2 button. So let's do a teardown of the PCB to see if there's anything unique and different about this Tron cab. So after removing all the wires for the different lighting, we took a look at the PCB itself, and with the help of Mystery Encoder, plugged it into my PC to see what type of chip it is, and it's running an all-winner board in H6, which is very similar to Outrun as far as we could tell. So this just tells us that there's a lot of capabilities on this particular chipset, even though it's different than the other PCBs that we might have seen before. Taking a look under the control panel, we have a custom unique new joystick as well as the push-pull spinner design that we've never seen before in an Arcade1Up. So I was curious how the spinner worked and opened it up to find this rotary disc inside, which is an optical encoder, which is super similar to how the original Tron spinner worked. This is really exciting that they tried to even replicate how the Tron arcade spinner controls worked, just like the originals. The push-pull function is actually a little bit different, as you see the microswitches mounted inside, and those orange sections attached to the rod, that's the push-pull function. As it moves up and down, it moves that orange little lever and presses the microswitch for a digital input. So this is really interesting engineering. It is a little bit wonky and feels plasticky and cheap, but it works. Now let's go back to the Tron stick. Once you remove that restrictor plate, you'll find 4 individual microswitches that are pressed by the joystick individually. There's no real restrictor gate. It almost acts like a circular gate where you can hit all the different microswitches. They are a bit heavy. If you wanted more responsive stick, you can change out those microswitches for lighter switches, but that's up to you. As for the monitor, nothing special here, just a vertical version of the same BOE monitor that we've seen, 17 inches, that works perfectly fine for this setup. Lastly, I want to cover the unique wiring to this cab. You already have a Y splitter from that extension wire that goes directly into your PCB. Then you have a new Y splitter that goes on the top, one to the marquee and then one to the actual black light on the top of the cab. The second wire that comes out from your extender goes directly into your control panel, a 3.5mm jack, and then there's 2 additional Y splitters that power the J panel and the hump bar on your control bar. So this is so many different controls here. Make sure you follow the instructions and everything's lit up and wired correctly. Otherwise it won't power on correctly, but once you have everything set up, you'll have 5 different devices lit up. Now let's get into one of the major things about the cab, the games themselves. Tron and Discs of Tron, are these any good? So there are some folks that say the games themselves are terrible and didn't age well, and the cab is just beautiful. But me personally, I never played these games in the arcade, but I found them a little bit simplistic, charming, and challenging. There's 4 different mini games on Tron: Battle Tanks, Light Cycles, IO Tower, and MCP Cone. As you go through 12 different stages, the difficulty increases and the strategies definitely change on every single stage. So you're constantly learning and adjusting your gameplay for it, so it's not repetitive. You really do have to learn different strategies to play, and the spinner and flight stick combination controls make it really fun. So I've been enjoying it, not only playing each game, but chasing high scores onto the leaderboards, which I'll talk about. Let's go ahead and look at some of the different gameplay from the different stages for these games. If you want to see some more in-depth live gameplay, please check out my live stream that I have linked in the description below, or click on the link above. So the second game on the cab is Discs of Tron. Now this was actually meant to be the 5th minigame in the original Tron arcade, but it was cut due to time constraints and then repurposed into its own game, Discs of Tron. They upgraded some of the graphics and made the first attempt at this 3D environment, and you are taking control of Tron, trying to do a battle disc game against Sark and knock him off his platform. And so you have 3 little discs that you're shooting. He's shooting things back at you, missiles, you're blocking things. Each level increases in difficulty. In fact, once you get to about the 5th level, that's when you can actually start using the push-pull spinner and moving your push-pull spinner up and down to actually attack him on the different levels. This is a really fun, fast-paced game that I enjoyed. It took me a while to get the hang of it, and instead of just spamming the trigger, I started taking my time, really trying to aim. And the game's AI in this game is really on point. It does get challenging. It's like, how the heck does he know where I'm shooting stuff? Gotta bounce things off the wall, gotta learn my geometry for angles. This is a fun and challenging game, again using the spinner and flight stick controls. I've been actually having a really fun time playing this and learning it, and have already cracked top 20 in the game itself. One thing that super fans of Discs of Tron might be missing is the voice speech features that were found in the arcade version of Environmental Discs of Tron. That was the full cockpit version that had this additional background effect from a monitor and a mirror effect that had this background image displayed. It also had a different speech board there with Sark yelling at you if he knocked you over, so it was definitely way more immersive, and people that remember that, it was a huge part of the game. The Arcade1Up, it replicates the stand-up versions, which didn't have that for the most part. There were some updates to later stand-up ones to include it, so that's why they might be remembering it was there. Arcade1Up didn't include that, but it would be great to see if they added it as a future update. It'd be nice to have that as another online update in the future, just to give you more options, but otherwise it's not a huge deal breaker for me, but just wanted to mention out there for those that are missing that speech board. So this cab is online enabled, which allows leaderboards as well as various options to be able to record your scores. Here's the menu for Tron, where you see you have initial lives, bonus, difficulty, and smoothing, which I absolutely don't recommend. But when you change your difficulty settings, you have an asterisk next to it, and that asterisk means those are the arcade settings for the arcade scoreboard. You also have the option to change it to any setting and get onto the any setting leaderboard as well. During my live gameplay stream, I got to check out and see every single high score on the leaderboard and scroll down to see how many people were on the board. About 5 days after the cab was released, there was already 476 people that were on the online scoreboard. Whatever score you place, you are on the board. But the great thing about online leaderboards is you can chase people. You can find somebody that you're looking for, and this is a quick example of me chasing Endless1Up because he was 2 spots ahead of me. I put together this super cheesy strategy and I went for it, and I went to go see if I could beat him, and I did it, and it was the best feeling in the world. Check it out. 43,000. Is that enough to beat Endless1Up? I don't know. That's my highest score. Did I beat you? Did I get it? Did I get it? Did I get it? Where am I? Yes! Going down, Endless1Up. You are now number 20 and I am number 18. So I'm at 43,339. Endless1Up is at 42,000. Ha! Man, that was really fun, and competition really drives me. So online leaderboards are great. I can say at one point in time, I was a top 20 player in both Tron and Discs of Tron. Now I'm going to dive into some additional things about the cab, including the secret test menu and the ability to add USB devices. Thanks to Peripherals, another YouTube user discovered how to get into the secret test menu by holding the trigger button, the thumb button, player 1 and player 2 while you turn on the cab. This allows you to get into the test menu. What does this do? You can test your button inputs, but he also was able to test out a GRS spinner from Glenn's Retro Show and plug it into the USB slot, and it worked. Unfortunately, the push-pull function didn't work, but the spinner function worked. That was exciting. He also tested out a keyboard, which also worked, to be able to map out controls to a keyboard. That's just to say that the PCB can accept different devices. So if you really wanted the spinner upgraded, you can do that by just adding a USB spinner, but the push-pull function doesn't work quite right, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it's good to know. Speaking of swapping out controls, I wanted to compare one of the most popular aftermarket Tron accessories, the Glenn's Retro Show GRS Tron stick on the left, compared to the stock Arcade1Up on the right. You can see the stock Arcade1Up is closer to the original Tron cab and actually feels a little bit better in hand. There's lots of space and room for my hand. The trigger does feel heavy though, but it does come with a thumbstick. Glenn's is a little bit smaller, it's not as thick, and the trigger does feel nicer. However, it doesn't feel as good in my hand as the bigger Arcade1Up stock one. Personally, I think the stock Tron stick works really well, and I don't think it needs a replacement. The only thing I might consider changing out is the Microswitches. Other than that, the stick, the size feels great. So during a live modding session, I got to compare the stock Arcade1Up spinner with Glenn's Retro Show GRS spinner, and we saw the inside of the stock one. It uses an optical encoder sensor, it's made out of plastic, it feels a little bit flimsy, it doesn't spin as well. Glenn's feels really fantastic. This is a high quality spinner, it has a push-pull functionality with the Tron top there. Look how much it spins freely when you're spinning it. It feels much more weighted and heavy. It uses a Hall magnetic sensor inside, so it's super accurate. It feels great, but it just fits into a button. So the problem is you can't just do a stock replacement. You do need to mount something, and the push-pull function won't work with the stock interface. But if you want to do an upgrade just for the spinner, Glenn's Retro Show spinner definitely is a huge upgrade just on the spinning portion itself. One of the most iconic features on the original Tron cab was that light up display image above the monitor of the MCP, and it's missing from your Arcade1Up Tron. Well, fear not, because Etsy user RNSK Skunkworks is already putting together a mod, as well as Tulsa Arcades. I ordered one. I'm going to be doing this mod to mod the S panel above your Arcade1Up to complete the cab. I can't wait. I'll do a future video on it soon. One of my goals with getting this cab, especially with the unique controls of the spinner and the flight stick, was to see if I could make my own custom Launchbox BigBox build that utilized the controls with other games that could work. Shoot 'em ups, different Tron games, arcade classics like Tempest, Zaxxon, Arkanoid. These are all games that work fantastic with this control setup, and I wanted to create a simple playlist to utilize those controls. Yes, I put a PC in already. Yes, I lost the PCB, which I don't have online leaderboards anymore. I don't know if I'm going to go back to stock. We'll see if I'm going to continue to build out this list, but let me know if you want to see a full mod tutorial or check out my live vodding session that I did where I already completed this mod, added the flight stick to a USB encoder, changed out the GRS spinner into a USB, and that was it. Very simple. So here's my big box build and some gameplay. Now there are a few cosmetic things that I don't like. The first being, which you've already saw, the front kick plate is way too plain. I wish they would have put that new plastic coin door, which looks gorgeous, on here. It would have made absolute great sense to do that. Another thing here is the light from the black light does get in the way sometimes. You can see the reflection on the top of the screen depending on what eye level you're at. So that is a little bit annoying. Another thing is I have a couple of different gripes about the plexiglass. Why is this hole so big when the joystick doesn't need that much space and there's actual graphics under there that can get scratched? That bugs me. Another thing that bugs me on the side, there's actual vinyl on the inside that gets easily scratched. I already have some scratches on the inside of my vinyl that you can see there, so that bugs me. Underneath the plexiglass, it looks like there is a piece of hair that got underneath this little graphic here. You can't see in the dark, but you can see it lit up. And my worst offender, the screw was tied in too tightly onto the monitor screw and already cracked. I saw one other person already complain about this as well. I didn't do anything with that screw and there was a crack in my screen. So I might submit a ticket, but that was the biggest bugger for me, and I hope I can get it fixed. But those are just minor gripes, cosmetic mods only, otherwise everything else worked out fine. So final thoughts on this cab. Was this worth $700? For me, getting it under $700 with that 10% off discount plus the 5% red card was worth it for me. I really had this cab in my mind to get as soon as it came out because of the unique control scheme. That, the way that it looked, it's iconic, towering, massive beastness in my arcade, absolutely looks gorgeous. So I love the fact that I have this arcade in my house. I was planning to mod one and make one of my own, so when they finally announced this, I was all in. $700 was definitely a little bit pricey. Here's the stool that I didn't really cover much, is your standard Arcade1Up stool. I do hope they release other versions of this without the stool, a little bit cheaper, so that people can get this. If it can be under $600, I think this is one of the best Arcade1Ups that Arcade1Up has ever put together. It's gorgeous. The gameplay is simplistic, but it's charming for somebody like me that never played the game growing up. I've gotten used to it, and the modding potential, which you saw, is definitely off the charts. Lots of things you can do with this cab, so I would recommend it personally. I had small gripes on the cosmetic side of things. Yes, you might be spending a little bit more to do upgrades, but is it absolutely a gorgeous showpiece with very simplistic, fun gameplay. Anybody can pick it up, anybody can play. So that's it for this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel on your way out. Thanks for taking it to the next level. We'll see you next time. Bye. What stage are you having trouble with?
The Kunalingus.
Okay, we're done.